Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited that you're here. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day and busy February. It feels like everybody I talk to has so much going on this month. So we really appreciate your time and are thrilled for this opportunity to share with you our PQMD Measuring for Success Toolkit. This is a resource that's specific to monitoring and evaluation in the donations field. I'm Julie Marie Vanderberg, and I'm the Senior Director of Global Health Programs at PQMD. And on behalf of our entire team at PQMD and the Knowledge and Innovation Committee, I wanted to welcome you. I see that there are many members here, but in case you're new to PQMD, I just wanted to briefly tell you we're a global alliance of international NGOs and leading corporations in healthcare that are committed to advancing the role of quality product donations worldwide. Very quickly, we have some housekeeping rules that will help us. If you don't mind typing in the chat box who's there, because although we can see you, I'm not sure that you can see each other. And we'd love to create a sense of community here for this webinar as well. So let us know who you are and what organization you're with. Also, because of the large audience, we have muted everybody's microphones and disabled videos. However, when it is time for Q&A at the end, we'd love to see your faces and hear from you directly. We'll also be monitoring the chat box though, so if you prefer to type in questions or comments as the presentation's going on, we'll get to everybody at the end. Also, we'll share a link for our community of practice, which is an online space where our network connects on different issues related to medical product donations. And just wanted to let you know too that we'll be recording this session, so it'll be available later today. In a nutshell, our toolkit is a place where we have applied classic M&E strategies to product donations. Since product donations are often nested inside larger health development programs, we wanted to have a space where people can commune and develop tools specific to trying to understand the results or the impacts of the donated medical products. So work in motion. This rollout represents our third update to the toolkit. But we are so excited to be continually evolving it. So we have two quick poll questions too. Jen, if you're ready with those, we can float those out. If you don't mind answering these questions, it's going to help us to kind of direct our presentation today and get a little bit more information. So the first is, do you have an M&E strategy that's specific to product donations at your company or your organization? I'll give you guys a minute to answer that. And while you're filling out that question, I'm going to introduce two of the panelists, and then we'll move on to the second question. Okay. So Mitch Eiting is our standing chair of the K&I committee, and he's been guiding the Toolkit project for a number of years. He also invests time and energy into work that benefits vulnerable populations, both in his hometown as well as around the globe. Mitch, would you mind saying a few words to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Julie Marie. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, I've been the chair for the K&I committee now for over 3 years, but my day job is the global corporate giving strategy and doing all the philanthropy for our company at Midmark in Versailles, Ohio. So I've been there for going on now almost 35 years. So it's fun to be part of this committee, and I greatly appreciate it. Back to you, Julie Marie.
Thank you. And Andy Sturgachis, I have you up next. You're joining us from the West Coast. Some people say the best coast.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I'll keep it short. I'm Andy Sturgachis. I'm based here in Seattle at the University of Washington, where I have academic appointments in several departments. And interestingly, these days, I like to say one of them is epidemiology, because epidemiology is all over the news these days. And I'm a proud member of the K&I committee. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Next, let's just do one more. Sasha. So Sasha Zuvia is a powerhouse. She works with us on a number of different projects on the K&I committee beyond the toolkit. We're working on some special projects. And would you take a minute to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks very much, Julie Marie. You're always too kind. But yeah, as Julie Marie said, I'm Sasha Zuyeva, and I'm a senior evaluation manager at Johnson & Johnson. I'm on the foundation/CSR team, where I cover monitoring and evaluation of product donations, disaster response, impact investing, and employee engagement. So pretty wide. I'm also overseeing our annual SDG reporting and the external audit process, which we're undergoing right now. So I apologize if I'm a little bit frazzled with lots of data flying back and forth. But really glad to be here. Thanks very much.
Excellent. Jen, can we switch to the next question? We'll explore the answers after the introductions, if that's okay. So the next question that you have is, oh, well, we can look at it right now. That's fine. It looks like the majority, that's great, of our audience actually have an M&E strategy particular to donations. Let's do the next one. Well, Jen's putting it up there. I'll go ahead and introduce the next panelist. So Tina Greer is joining us from the United Kingdom. I've really been enjoying working with Tina as she has been a newer member to PQMD and really champions global health work at IHP. Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, happy to. So Tina from International Health Partners. So we're based in London and work all around the world with partners facilitating the donation, as all our PQMD members. And I'm the Chief Operating Officer there. So my role is really broad. So it's governance, HR, fundraising, finance. And then very occasionally I get to look at things like monitoring and evaluation and impact reporting. So it's been really good to be part of this committee and working alongside the experts and learning a lot from them.
Excellent, thanks. And last but not least, well, actually we have two more. Dale Hill is not only a member of the K&I committee, but also on PQMD's advisory board, and just a lot of fun to have around. Would you mind introducing yourself, Dale?
Sure, thank you very much. Greetings. I'm Dale Hill. I'm at this point an independent consultant in monitoring and evaluation. In the past, I've worked for the World Bank and the American Red Cross. The latter during the Haiti emergency of the earthquake. So I'm very pleased to be here and I enjoy working on the committee.
Thanks, Dale. And Laura Hollids also on the line with us. So Laura is one of my favorite thinkers and communicators who I get to collaborate with. She's consulting with us on the Measuring for Success Toolkit, as well as some other special projects. Laura, do you mind saying a word or two?
Hi, everyone. I'll turn my video on for a second. There I am. I need a background like Dale's. That's all I'm going to say. But yes, I have an epidemiology background myself, which, to your point, Andy, is now really cool. And I work mostly with companies and nonprofits on measurement and impact, and have thoroughly enjoyed working with PQMD. Previously was working with Sasha at Johnson & Johnson in that function. Okay, excellent. It looks like the results from our panel, our second poll are in, and most of the people on the webinar have not yet been on the PQMD Toolkit. So thanks so much for that input, guys. And with that, Mitch, I'm going to share my screen and turn it over to you.
Terrific. Thanks, Julie Marie. Well, welcome, everybody. Today I am just going to do a quick introduction of how the toolkit came about and a little bit of timeline. And I'm not going to read these two slides. I'll let you guys read them yourselves. But we started this conversation back in 2013 when everyone's wondering, well, how can we make sure the stuff we're donating is making an impact in health systems and wherever we were donating stuff. So as the K&I committee, and well, at that point in time it was the Research and Development Committee, started having conversations. They started doing white papers. Then in 2015, they commissioned Andy and the University of Washington to put a research paper together with some research, and we ended up with a 48-page, this is what M&E looks like from what we've gathered so far at this point in time. And then as we move forward, in 2016, we moved into phase 2. That was kind of like watering it down a little bit for understanding. 2017, we came up with the final research page that Andy started with back in 2015. 2018, we decided we're going to go out and visit some of the NGOs and corporations that would like for us to review a process they have for M&E. So we went out and visited Henry Schein, Heart to Heart International, Johnson & Johnson, and MedShare. And with that, kind of brought us up to where we are now with the interactive website that's going to be introduced in the near future. We're really heavy into the strategic planning for our PQMD that we just recently did. So that brings us up to today. And our panelists coming up here shortly will be talking about everything up until today, where we're at, where we're going, and thoughts and processes. So with that, Julie Marie, I'm going to give the stage back to you, and I'm going to sit back and listen to the great presenters. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
I'm sorry, I'm navigating the slides. Okay. So I just wanted to add that PQMD's toolkit really addresses sort of different areas that our members work in all the time. So hopefully you'll recognize your own projects and products, not products, but projects and programs in there. Andy, these are your slides.
Give me a minute to unmute. So thank you very much, Julie Marie and Mitch. So I guess the three topics that I was asked to comment on briefly were what are the goals, what's the evolution, and you heard some of the evolution already from Mitch, and what's the potential here. And among other early activities, a number of us in partnership with PQMD proceeded to assess the member organizations' activities, interest, gaps as they relate to monitoring and evaluation. And this resulted in a survey that identified certain needs. And one of the biggest needs identified had to do with the lack of technical staff, interest in additional support, and these were identified as key barriers to understanding the outcomes of product donation programs. Now, we also learned that member organizations were doing routine monitoring for their donation programs. But having said that, there was quite a variation in terms of what was being monitored with respect to the programs themselves. So we did have a number of learnings from our survey and conversations across the board, as well as looking at what does the body of literature tell us about what is the impact of product donation and service donation programs in this space. So this led to the evolution of our thinking about collectively as a committee, K&I and its predecessor committee, with respect to what might be needed in order to further strengthen monitoring and evaluation of medical donation programs. And there's no shortage of reasons for doing this, part of which would be self-motivating on the part of the organizations to better demonstrate things like value provided, as well as impact, hopefully, of the programs themselves. And so with this, additionally, is the ability to further align M&E efforts with where the field is, which includes consistency with the PQMD guidelines, which certainly call out monitoring and evaluation, the WHO guidelines, and increasingly the Access to Medicines initiatives, which also ask about monitoring outcomes. So all this collectively led to the development and the evolution of the development of the PQMD toolkit that I'm looking forward to hearing from Julie Marie as you walk us through. The various elements of this, and just very briefly, one last thing I'd like to speak about the evolution of this is it started with an identification of a need, proceeded with content guided by the K&I committee, with lots of input, with outreach to member organizations for things like case studies and lots of interviews that went into this. Thank you, PQMD leadership for having that underway. And then this remarkable toolkit, which allows for navigation for users to go to where their greatest need is for additional information and training. The final thing I want to say is its potential, that this is something that's being really curated with leadership from PQMD and the K&I committee and input from member organizations. I really do see a lot of potential here. And it's heartening to see the perseverance of this effort over time, because I think some of these conversations predate a number of us who, not everybody, but a number of us who look at this as an opportunity to further demonstrate the value of medical donation programs. Thank you very much for the opportunity to chat about this. Back to you.
Okay, this is Dale Hill, and this is my slide. It is meant to show what the toolkit does do and what it doesn't do, and also to reflect the desire of PQMD ultimately to have its members commit to monitoring and evaluation, or M&E as I'll call it, and to measuring for success. So the two triangles on the left and on the right are areas which are squarely up to the members. M&E policy represents an intentionality, but some organizations may not be ready for it yet. And of course, program improvement at the right is what you do with the findings of an evaluation, which is really the reason for an evaluation, program improvement. So the toolkit does cover a lot of tools, or what I call pillars of monitoring and evaluation theory and practice. So I'll just go over them quickly. And of course, it tries to adapt them to the scene of medical product and service donations. So one pillar I put in as an umbrella pillar, which is to include stakeholders. And that's because consulting stakeholders is best practice if you can do it at all stages, but it's not always practical for all stakeholders. So there are three tasks that are informed by M&E. First is program design, and second, monitoring design, and then periodic evaluation. The program design, for that we use a tool called the theory of change, which is sometimes called a program theory or a results chain. And basically one sets a series of objectives and lays out the inputs, outputs, intended outcomes, and if it's a long-term program, intended impacts. The monitoring design then flows from the theory of change to measure if those intended results are achieved, and ideally factors that are hindering or adding to the possibility of success, which means sometimes you need to measure inputs and outputs in addition to outcomes. For periodic evaluation, we have several tools, and this can be done at the beginning of a project. We highly recommend a baseline collection of data. There's a midterm review optional, and evaluation at completion. The evaluation will probably use some of the monitoring data, but can also collect additional data. So these are the tools that M&E literature gives us. First, criteria to measure the merit of the program. Relevance, for example, to the needs of the population. Coherence with other programs going on in country. Effectiveness, which means are the objectives met? Efficiency, value for money, and sustainability of outcomes, not the program, but outcomes. So the latter may require looking at an exit strategy. The second tool is evaluation questions, which are based on the program theory again, and any questions arising during implementation. And they are sometimes grouped by criteria. So for example, under effectiveness criteria, the questions might be, was objective 1 met? If not, why not? There may also be an evaluation question related to a subcomponent like training. How effective was the training? The third tool we use is the logical framework, or log frame for short. And this is a chart that lays out the data collection required, and again is based on the program theory. So it will have in one column the concept of the indicator, second column the detailed definition, third how often it's collected and who is responsible for collecting it, etc. This type of information. It's very important that the indicators are defined in a way that makes them meaningful. So there is an acronym that is in the M&E literature called SMART. And some of the specific requirements are things like indicators should be specific, they should be measurable, they should be time bound, for example, per year, per quarter. So I did not include in this slide the multiple methodologies that M&E specialists would use because it's a huge number. And basically the idea is that you hire a competent evaluator who lays out a proposal to respond to the evaluation questions and works with you and agrees with you up front. But the final step is in this slide because it's very important, and that's the interpretation of results and learning from them. And that points to the program improvement triangle at the right, which is really up to you PQMD members because you know your program best. I'd be glad to answer questions on the M&E policy, which I haven't covered much later if you're interested.
Thanks, Dale.
Great. Thanks very much, Dale. So I'm going to continue the conversation about M&E, and I think what's important to say is that measurement and evaluation within the product donation space is a relatively new field, as is, in fact, M&E in the corporate philanthropy space in general, to be honest. And I think right now in this field, we're actually at a juncture where we can write the rule book because it's so new. But we're also at a place where, as Dale aptly demonstrated, a lot of the rule book actually already exists. So we do not want to reinvent the wheel. And I'm sorry about the noise in the background. And this is the point of the toolkit. So we are standing on years of M&E frameworks and definitions in the global health sector. And the strength of the toolkit is in pointing you to the detailed resources, existing resources that will be useful for donation programs. At the same time, the other strength of the toolkit is that it actually keeps in mind the uniqueness of the product donation sector, a sector where additional and specific language, for example, may be needed. And I think once we get the common language, it will drive communication, and we've agreed to some of it. It will drive communication, it will drive comparability, which is important. So we'll be able to benchmark against one another. And therefore, there will be increased accountability, there'll be increased transparency in our space. We hope that you will contribute to actually testing this toolkit and developing this toolkit further. Next slide, please. And a reflection of the fact that the M&E and the product, I'm not going to read the slide through, it's just examples of questions that are being asked. And an example of the fact that actually M&E is becoming more and more sophisticated in global health programming, but also in product donation programming. So I think one example that M&E in the product donation sector is at a very early stage is that we're still mostly measuring inputs. Sometimes we're measuring outputs, but it's very rare to see outcomes of product donation programs captured. There's not much in the published literature that I've seen. And to be perfectly honest, there's not much, you know, at my place of work at J&J, we're still working on it. We're still working on getting towards outcomes. For some of our programs, I can tell you how many target participants we've reached, so I can tell you the outputs, but I can't tell you kind of the change in their life that our product donation has affected. And I think that's, you know, that's really where we're going to. That's really what we want to understand in order to improve programs, as Dale mentioned, which is really the ultimate point of M&E. But I would say that the field is moving forward. So a lot of you probably have seen, but Shang-Ju Lee of AmeriCares published an excellent study that develops an algorithm for converting medication quantities into number of individuals served at facility level. So and he considers the very complicated issues that we have to contend with in product donation that kind of other global programs don't have to contend with, like repeat visits, acute versus chronic patients who are using the product, and actually the fact that we're so far removed from the ultimate beneficiary, the fact that the donation, the kind of the source of donation is very often very far removed, especially for corporate foundations like us. And understanding at least the conversion factor of medicines to number of patients reached is actually one of the first steps in trying to figure out what the outcomes or benefits to the patients might be. And although the AmeriCares study is actually very useful, it did not evaluate the potential full impact of medical donations programs, both positive and negative, intended and unintended, which is what we strive with evaluation. Because we are still mostly focusing on inputs and occasionally outputs, it's difficult to understand how donations work in context and what effect they're actually really having on the community. We also assume, but don't always know what the effect might be on the donors themselves. So for example, for Johnson & Johnson, it's important to understand what the effect is on employees. So employees who are participating in kitting activities, for example. So about a year ago, Johnson & Johnson and Julie Marie alluded to this. We funded an evaluation that would move more towards outcome level metrics in that particular space. So looking at hygiene kits and understanding the effect on the actual community, but also understanding the effect on employees as well as the other recipients who you're seeing on the slide. This is called the PQMD Spotlight on Hygiene Kits initiative. And please reach out to Julie Marie if you'd like to learn more about it. And the really great part of the initiative is that it's meant to rely on and incorporate the tools that the toolkit is providing and apply them to the more sophisticated questions about impact on different stakeholders. As I mentioned in the last slide, the common language that is developed by the toolkit will allow us to ask what works and know what we mean by it and know how we can compare what programs work and which don't. But I think in general, the evaluation sector is becoming more sophisticated. International development, global health programs are not only asking what works at the moment, they're actually asking what works for whom and under what conditions. So we're trying to be much more specific and granular about the impact to really understand how to affect change. And this differentiation of the audiences is very important for us at J&J. Arguably, and I think there is research done in this space. I'm not an expert in this research. Others will probably know much more. But there's some studies that are looking at whether cash may be better at affecting individual level outcomes than product donations are in some cases. This may or may not be the case, but I think we as members of PQMD and organizations that are providing product donations need to explore this more. And we need to look at the potential benefits of product donations that may not be immediately apparent. So again, this is looking at kind of a larger number of stakeholders. So maybe they reduce wastage. So this is like a large societal benefit. Maybe product donation contributes to mental well-being of employees who are putting together hygiene kits, for example. Maybe it improves supply chains. Maybe it can be used as a connector between a patient and a health worker, where there may be hesitation to visit a health worker in the first place after a disaster. There's lots of potential to actually put an evaluation framework around this and really understand what the questions are. I think we need to understand the dynamics, and we need to create evidence to stay relevant. And I think this toolkit actually is the blueprint for creating evidence in the product donation space. So thank you.
Thank you, Sasha. Now on to Tina.
Hi. So I've been invited to speak from the point of view of someone who's used the toolkit. So I do sit on the committee that has developed this, but I think I've been invited to be part of that committee, and I sit alongside experts. So I've inputted, but I think I have probably benefited more than being an active person to input. And I've really appreciated the expertise that you've heard already in this presentation. So I wanted to share some of the ways we've already used the toolkit. So at International Health Partners, we facilitate the donation of medicines through our network of partners and our generous pharmaceutical donors that we work with. And we've sent over the last 5 years, just to give you a sort of a framework for this, we've shipped over 15 million treatments to over 74 countries. So we always want to know, what is the benefit, what is the impact of our work? And part of my role has been trying to grapple with this. So there's a number of things that we've measured and continue to measure, such as Sasha and Dale have said, the easier things to measure for us are the outputs. So what is it that we're sending in terms of our treatment numbers? But we've long had this ambition to look further beyond that to outcomes and the impact as an organisation. So the toolkit is a really good way to look at how you approach your M&E in general, and how you enhance it and take it further with the benefit of the expertise that has gone into developing it. And so what the toolkit gives you is, first off, a framework. So it's the logical steps to follow. Where do you start? What to include? What's really critical? And then it gives you options in how you approach that. Because every organisation is different. Every organisation is going to want to know different information. You'll have different interests if you're a donor company than if you're a delivery partner, or if you're a provider, a service provider like IHP, sitting somewhere in the middle between the companies and between those who are running the programs. So that's the first thing that the toolkit will give you, is that framework. But then secondly, and really importantly, if you're someone like me, you're trying to do it right. So you've got this framework, but you need to have the confidence that you're not missing critical steps. So that's the second thing that I've found that the toolkit has given me in approaching this, and trying to bring together some of the other things that we were measuring that I felt were important. So business measures, some of our KPIs, and how we work with our partners, how effectively are we meeting their need, and bring that into a coherent framework. So it helps you have that confidence that you're not missing the critical steps, and it gives you the language around monitoring and evaluation and the processes, and literally the tools, as it says on the tin. It gives you the tools to demystify what M&E is, and it's very in that. I guess my message to you is, if you feel you have a limited background in this, as I have, then no particular expertise, then if I can do this and approach this, then anybody can. And the final thing that it gives you, and this is set out on this second slide, is that the toolkit is really practical and relevant. So you'll see there just a few snapshots from the toolkit itself. So one of the critical things you'll need as you approach your monitoring and evaluation is to get your key evaluation questions right. What do you want to know? Why do you want to measure it? What's it going to give you? What are you going to learn from that? And therefore, what do you need to measure? So for IHP, as we reflect on what our role is in facilitating medicine donations, we want to know, for instance, that we're doing it efficiently. Just take this little Venn diagram down here, the colourful intersecting circles there. There's questions that the moment you start to engage with those, each organisation, your answers to the questions can be different. But what is it that is going to make your programmes and your response relevant? So for us, it's about meeting the needs of our overseas partners. How will we achieve sustainability? Or is it about the way maybe we exit programs? Or is it about the training we might be able to provide to our partners in good distribution practice, so the handling of the medicine? What is it that we want to know about the efficiency, say, of our processes? So we want to know how long it takes from when a partner says, I need this kind of medicine, for us to procure that as a donation, for it actually to be shipped and with them in country. So there's different questions you're going to need to ask yourself. And as an organisation, your answers will be unique. But what the toolkit gives you is that confidence, that framework to approach those questions and to logically work your way through the toolkit. So you've got the three main sections. Just follow it through. There's lots of clear and practical examples there and case studies. And I would really recommend it to you. It's an excellent tool. So dive in, be confident, follow the framework, and keep sharing the learning. This is a constant process of learning and refining, and we'll never get it quite right, but we won't make any improvements until we start. So however you are approaching this, I just encourage you to dive in and use the toolkit at whatever stage of development your M&E process is at.
Thank you so much, Tina. And as you all were speaking, I was reflecting on the expertise and perspective that each of you bring and how valuable this is. I just feel very grateful to be able to work on this project with you guys. But PQMD houses a lot of different types of organizations who are doing different types of good around the world. So hopefully, like I said, I'm just trying to get onto the website so I can walk you guys through this, the actual toolkit itself, but hopefully you will not only see yourself in your programs in the toolkit, but also be able to add to it. We'd love to have you join us. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the simplest things sometimes. Give me 1 second. There it is. Okay, so now for the big moment, maybe some of you have been waiting for. How do you get to the toolkit? So you go ahead and go to our PQMD website, which is pqmd.org, and there you can learn everything about PQMD as well. But if you go over to toolkits, we actually have a number of toolkits that we're working on. The one you're looking at today is the Measuring for Success toolkit. If you go into that website, we'll open our toolkit. And I have the opportunity to go through a little bit of the high level sections of our toolkit. So you can see here that we talk about, I'm starting with this website map. So for Measuring for Success, we took time to kind of understand what the users of a toolkit might need to do and when they need to do it. And you can go into this in any kind of way. It's not a continuum. You don't need to start at any place and end up anywhere else. We hope that you'll find all the resources very helpful. So the main sections here you can see are really talking about describing your programs, asking the right evaluation questions, mapping stakeholders, scoping out which activities you might need to do for your evaluation or monitoring efforts, determining what data you need to collect, developing indicators, and sharing your results. We also have, in each one of those sections you'll see here is included with, here we go. here included with lots of different information. You'll have general descriptions. We have these are some PQMD generated tools, which you should be able to click on and also share with colleagues. Again, most of these are all in kind of constant motion. We think we've got a really good foundation and a really good start, but we also recognize that there's always new information to put into this toolkit. So for example, we have commitments from different organizations. All of this has been developed, by the way, with our members. So people, like AbbVie and Amgen and Baxter, Johnson & Johnson, MedShare, Mercy Ships. I'm talking about the organizations that have helped us to kind of frame out what we're doing, but also have just a little caveat. There's a bunch of case studies that are kind of brewing right now with Project Cure and Max Foundation and some of the other ones that we'd like to be able to put into this. So just giving you a kind of an example. Also, there are links to kind of the nuts and bolts of monitoring and evaluation. We'd like to be clear, this is not a M&E training session. We're exploring kind of classic methodologies and trying to give you kind of as users some insight from a medical donations perspective. For example, here we're talking about the stakeholders, and these are the types of stakeholders that are typically found in medical product donations. We've also taken some time to give you some tools that you might be able to use to customize that for your own program. And finally, we are looking to be able to learn across all of the good work that's going on out there. And so I think most people are really interested in indicators right now too, as that's where the field is kind of moving, and case studies. So those are two areas that we're really going to try to focus on kind of very clearly with the next round of iterations. And I want to see. So for example, I'm going to highlight MAP's case study here. So they were able to bring antibiotics in and really look at kind of how they were doing M&E with this program. And they wanted to be able to report on the outcomes of this program. And this case study here will take you through kind of not only what they did, but also the learnings that came out of it. This accompanied with this is some Excel sheets that will help you if you wanted to be able to explore your own project, as well as potentially. The other thing we wanted to tell you is a lot of this is information for you to be able to start the process, but also we recognize that everybody's kind of at a different point with their M&E capacity. Some of you will have internal groups that will be able to, not only utilize this, but maybe contribute to it as well. And other ones, you're just kind of starting off in your M&E journey, and you may actually need a technical consultant or somebody to help you to kind of get to the point that you'd like to get to. And that can take lots of different shapes as well. And PQMD is very interested too in the future to be able to curate a reference database for M&E consultants who do have expertise in this area and can help build on the results of our toolkit here. And last but not least, here at the end, we have a little bit about the work we're doing for measuring for success. There's Andy and there's Tina, like explaining some of their stories. You've seen some of these graphics if you've seen PQMD's other work. This is the committee that is continually working on this month after month to try to make it better. Some of our history is here as well. And I'm sharing that with you because we also, in addition to what we're doing here with the toolkit, we have some other projects that are that take shape when necessary or when needed. So Sasha already mentioned the Spotlight on Hygiene Kit project, which will be linked. So that's going to deliver a suite of both the external evaluation tools as well as internal monitoring tools to be able to improve kitting programming from various perspectives, various stakeholder perspectives, and that'll be linked to this as well. And then one of the other ones we wanted to kind of highlight right now, and I'm going to give Laura a chance to talk about this, was the COVID-19 rapid assessment tool that we're developing, and it's going to also be linked to this toolkit, as we heard that many of our members were interested in not only having a framework to think through what their total response was, but also potentially benchmark against other organizations. Laura, did you want me to share the tool, or you just want to talk?
It's up to you, Julie Marie. I think sharing it so that people, and I guess a question back to you, share, in terms of the actual link itself, making sure that gets out to people. Or I guess they can just find it in the toolkit at this point, right?
Well, I think, yes, it'll eventually be on the tool. Go to the website, and then you'll be able to go ahead and get it from the toolkit. Let me see. I think I have it open here. And this is in the back end, but you can still talk to it. Just let me know where you'd like to go.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks again for the chance to speak with everyone today. And I think this is an exciting example of a tool that, we wish we didn't have to develop, but given the COVID-19 pandemic and, of course, the responses that companies and nonprofits and really everyone in the space have made over the past year, believe it or not, and even longer for some, we, as Julie Marie said, heard an interest in developing something like this, and we thought, well, great, we have a toolkit. Let's make a tool that's that's targeted toward this particular need right now. And I think one of the things that we learned, so our process included engaging a handful of you, actually, some of you on the call, and a few others of your colleagues, to just hear about where you are in your journey in terms of understanding your response and measuring your own response, wrapping your arms around it. In many cases, the responses being broad and wide-reaching in terms of everything that your organization does being targeted toward the response right now. And so we heard an interest in that, and we wanted to dig a little bit deeper with a handful of you, who we then were grateful to be able to share the first draft with and kind of work on a little bit with our little team of critical friends. And then where we ended up is really a tool for organizations to walk through a process together of assessing, kind of capturing what data you have available already, assessing your own measurement and evaluation approach toward your COVID response, and sort of, benchmarking yourself along a journey of, in terms of where you are in the response and your capacity to understand that response and measure that response and report on it. And we think that we intend for the tool, the process of going through that with peers in your organization that might have insight into this. We believe that for many of you, from what we've heard, that process itself will be valuable. And then actually completing the tool, which we'll show you at a high level, and the kind of product that you get after completing the tool that you'll actually be able to have in your hands. We think that will be valuable for some of you in terms of being able to use it as a way to communicate internally about your response. But we also heard from many of you that some of that internal stuff is less valuable than the external piece. So the ability to, as we've called it here, appreciate your unique response efforts, meaning really be able to compare your response and where you are in your journey with the PQMD collective, and possibly even benchmark a little bit against some of your peers. And for that, we've made this an online platform, an online tool where you can actually, as you complete the tool, the data sort of, comes to PQMD on the back end. And depending on the kind of responses that we get, we would be able to then look across the field as a whole and hopefully share back some of the key learnings from you. So that's kind of a way to meet the various needs, we hope, of the members in terms of where you are in your response in the measurement and reporting of the results of your response. The last thing I'll say is where we landed with this tool for now is, you know, again, an online interactive tool for you to enter information about your current work. We tried to keep it much more categorical response and much less writing in a whole bunch of text. So I think, yes, we have the word rapid at the top there, and we want it to be rapid for you. And we don't see this as a survey that we're, you know, of the many surveys that are being pushed out right now, but rather an internal piece that you can use. So again, there's two pieces. There's the tool itself that you complete. And then we decided to also, you know, as we heard from conversations, provide part two, which is the guidance. So if you look on the left-hand side, right, Julie Marie's pointing to that. This is sort of, you know, after you've gone through the tool itself and you see your results in front of you, you're holding up the mirror. These are some kind of questions and prompts and considerations that you might have with, say, the team of people in your organization that did the tool together, or with you, if it sort of falls in your responsibility to see how you can kind of move and advance your approach toward what we're calling, you know, a more results-oriented approach, even down to the way you tell stories, and kind of connecting stories to, you know, bringing in a result-oriented approach to your storytelling, which we know almost everyone is kind of telling stories about their response. So yeah, Julie Marie, did you want to open the tool just for like a second to show what it looks like? I can also do that if I can share.
Yeah, I think maybe what we'll do, Laura, is I just kind of wrote into the chat that we're in the testing phase of this. So if anybody's really interested in it, you can email us to kind of become involved in this. And then within the next weeks, really, we'll be having, it'll be public and you'll be able to go ahead and get into it. I'm just conscious of time, Laura. We've only got 8 minutes and I wanted to see if anybody on the webinar, I'm sorry to cut you off. I know all of this stuff is so exciting. And maybe you'll have a question, but is there anybody who did have a question or a comment about kind of any of the work we're doing? All of the panelists are available to answer the questions, and many of the K&I committee members are actually on the call as well.
I just wanted to add something I forgot to say, which is that the beauty of the toolkit is that it is catered to whatever level of monitoring and evaluation you have right now. In other words, you can scan the parts you already know, but there are links to more detailed resources. So you can drill down according to your level of need. And I think that's a really good feature of the toolkit. Lots of resources I didn't know were there, so that's good.
Okay, I'm checking the chat, not seeing any questions there. And no hands are raised. It's fine. We definitely have a lot of really great synergistic conversations, and I feel like the toolkit too is sort of the tip of the iceberg with what the knowledge that's kind of being generated, or that you'd have exposure to when you were working with the K&I committee. One of the areas is really just defining or developing to the different types of donation programs and kind of what general health outcomes that they affect, and then kind of moving from there to come up with and kind of capture and understand what indicators might be the most useful to be able to point to for each type of program. For example, a product donation program that really leverages excess donation to be able to place it in a timely manner is very different than, say, a strategic development program that's really going after a health change kind of in a specific population with a specific health condition. So it's exciting time. It's an exciting time to be looking into the toolkit and to be developing kind of how we can show that product donation is in fact a conduit to some of the outcomes level changes. I do see a question. We have one from Lori in the question section, and I'm going to read it for you, Lori, since you typed it out. So you're new to the nonprofit world and working at Arnold P. Gold Foundation. This is your 3rd week. How can the toolkit help with a foundation like ours? I'm not familiar, Lori, with the Arnold P. Gold Foundation. Do any of our panelists want to answer? Or Lori, if you can talk, you can give us a quick little overview of what the work that you're doing and at what level.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Sure. So we do, really the basis of what we do is bringing humanism in healthcare and taking a humanistic approach. And that's typically what we do. So, we work with, actually, BD is one of our partners. We work with Siemens Healthineers, CVS, a lot of the corporations where, bringing humanism into healthcare means a lot. So I guess, for me, coming from the corporate, ad sales world, everything was measured, KPIs, because, you're selling and you want to make sure that, you're doing the right thing. So this is a little different in the sense that, yes, we have, companies and corporations that donate to us and, we give them exposure through events and so on and so forth. But I guess it's trying to figure out how best, the toolkit, I'm trying to figure out how the toolkit would work. And I'm sure it can in some capacity. I just think maybe perhaps if I was at the company longer, I'd have a better sense of how I could sort of plug this in. But I'm always open to suggestions.
I can start. Thank you, Lori. And I'd love to learn more about your organization. One area that I think could be universally helpful for almost any organization is that section that pertains, for example, to, I think Dale called it theory of change. Other people call it logic model or frameworks. And it's a way of depicting the relationship, just sketching it out between inputs and activities and outputs and outcomes. And certainly humanistic aspects of outcomes is something that could use additional attention because they tend to be harder to measure.
Right.
So I think the toolkit would provide you with a framework, but the actual details might need your engagement to help sort that one out. Aside from that, the organizations you mentioned are really your stakeholders who are undoubtedly interested in feedback in terms of, well, what difference did this make? So I think the section on stakeholders and evaluation questions might also be relevant for you and your organization as well, Lori. Just a few high-level thoughts. Thank you. Over.
Thank you.
Thank you. And looking at the time, I'm just gonna, Dale, did you have something you were gonna say? You're on mute. Dale, you're on mute.
Of the 4 sections, one of them is, I want to describe my program. And since you're new to your program and it sounds a little bit complex in terms of flows of money and products going back and forth, I think that section would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. So we do think that there's something for everybody in there. And we also realize, like everybody said, that it's a kind of a work in process and progress. And if anybody of our members, Ellen, I saw your comment about potentially feeling intimidated. This is a technical area, but it is really approachable. And that's what we're trying to do. So please just reach out to us. I can hook you up with any of the K&I committee members who can kind of think about it. We can do a personalized walkthrough the toolkit as well. We just want it to be used and relevant and helpful, and we'd love your feedback to make it even more so. I'm seeing one more question, but we actually are at time. So what I'm going to do is take this question and put it up onto the community of practice as well. And the link, Victoria, do you mind bopping the link for the community of practice right into the chat so that people can follow up after the webinar is over? So really, thank you all for joining us, and thank you so much for the work that you do every day with medical product donations, making a difference in the world for people who need your services and products. We do look forward to each iteration of the toolkit and to getting stronger. I'd also like to mention that we have a number of other events coming up this month. We have a workshop on cold chain, as well as a rare diseases workshop to kind of focus on donation practices within the rare disease space. And all of those are posted on both our website and our community of practice. And we'd love to have you join us if you found this event helpful, or if the topics upcoming are helpful as well. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and I hope that you have a lovely day. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to all the panelists.